Thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 12 p.m. on the live report. We have two big stories, the agenda-setting stories. This Friday, as Enforcement Directorate goes to court, it's going to be a politically charged day with a key hearing in the Calcutta High Court on how Mamata Banerjee just stole files during a raid of the Enforcement Directorate. Here are the headlines this afternoon. Republic accesses the Enforcement Directorate petition, which talks about how Mamata Banerjee stole the files, barged into an ongoing raid and threatened the Enforcement Directorate. All of this on paper and in court. The Chief Minister forcibly took the file, says Enforcement Directorate in his petition, despite being asked not to enter the premises. FIR filed by the Kolkata police against ED officers. The ED explains how police entered an ongoing raid site and claimed ED was trespassing. Says officers were intimidated by the police and not allowed to do their work. Is Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary Lutnick tells the media how India did not budge. India was given a deadline to agree to a trade deal. They expected Modi's call, but the Prime Minister stuck to his ground. Trump's aide confirms India did not budge, stood its ground on the trade deal. Ladies and gentlemen, Republic TV has accessed the Enforcement Directorate petition that has been filed in the Calcutta High Court on what happened yesterday in Kolkata, with the ED raiding two IPAC offices, the political consultancy that is helping Mamata Banerjee fight the elections in 2026. During the raids, the ED in his petition says Mamata Banerjee forcibly entered and tried to intimidate ED. Here are some of the details of the ED petition in the Calcutta High Court. We've accessed the petition and we are reading out some of the key points. It's on your screen right now, accessed by my colleague Shavan. The petition says that around 12:05 p.m., Mamata Banerjee, the sitting Chief Minister of Bengal, entered the premises despite making categorical requests for not interfering with the ongoing search proceedings. At around 12:05 on Thursday, Mamata Banerjee entered with the aid of police personnel, forcibly took possession of all digital devices along with key incriminating documents from the possession of the authorized officer. Left the premises at 12:15, 10 minutes later, and all the proceedings have been recorded in a Panchnama duly drawn on the premises on the 8th of January. However, after the receipt of an incident report, it was learned that the officers of the Enforcement Directorate were not allowed to perform their lawful duties and were obstructed to carry out the raids by the Kolkata police. It's unprecedented. I'm going across to Shavan. So a raid was ongoing. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point last afternoon, we were live on the live report when Mamata Banerjee entered, barged into, that was the visual in fact, when she entered Pratik Jain's residence and she barged out in exactly 10 minutes and she held a news conference. She stole the documents and the police stopped ED from doing his job. Shavan, if you can take us through the full petition on how they've detailed it and what now happens in court.
Well, in fact, unprecedented scenes from the searches that were basically carried out by the Enforcement Directorate almost at the same time today. In fact, in the petition that has been filed, it is quite shocking to say the least when you have a sitting Chief Minister basically obstructing the Enforcement Directorate to carry out their work. Let me take you through the sequence of events and then perhaps we can perhaps explain this to our viewers why exactly the searches were carried out. Now, if you go by this particular petition, 38-page petition, the Enforcement Directorate says that the searches started a little after 6 o'clock in the morning. The first target was Pratik's residence, that's IPAC co-founder's residence in Salt Lake in Kolkata. Until about 11 o'clock, everything was going fine. They had basically recorded certain statements and they had also seized certain items. And there were also independent punch witnesses who were present there. Around 11 o'clock is when the first Kolkata police officer reached there and informed the assistant director that they had received a complaint of trespassing. That's when the assistant director showed them the search warrant, which is under section 17 of the PMLA, which is basically authorizing the enforcement directorate to carry out searches. So the question of whether at all these were fake searches or not, that was already clarified. Immediately thereafter, a senior officer, an IPS officer actually came in. That's when the first set of obstruction began. And little after 12 o'clock is when you saw the Chief Minister hurriedly entering. Now that's where the problem actually began, because here in the petition they say that violating all law and order, Mamata Banerjee with the aid of police personnel forcibly took possession of all the digital devices along with key incriminating documents from the possession of the authorized officer, left the premises around 12:15 in the afternoon, and another premise, that is the IPAC office, is where the Chief Minister basically reached and once again prevented them from carrying out their work. Importantly, some big takeaways from this petition, something that we did not report yesterday, is about the role of the independent punch witnesses. Niranjan, independent punch witnesses are important because they're supposed to be neutral witnesses and they record whatever is essentially happening when the searches are carried out. They also record the conduct of the enforcement directorate officers. It turns out that the Chief Minister, and I'm quoting from the petition, the Chief Minister essentially told the independent punch witnesses that they need to leave the premises as soon as possible, and not just that, also record that nothing was found from the premises of Pratik. Now, what is not understood, and I'm quoting here, they were intimidated, effectively hijacked, made to write that the search was conducted in a peaceful manner, that nothing was recovered, rather than truthfully or correctly recording that the digital device and key incriminating documents were forcefully taken possession by the Chief Minister with the aid of the state police. So that's one big news really coming out. The second is what was essentially taken, that's the state police took away documents. They were already collected, indexed by the ED. They're now asking for a CBI investigation because they believe that the police has been completely corrupted here, discredited, if I may say so, given the fact that they aided all of this. That's the reason why they're saying that they need a proper investigation to be carried out by the Central Bureau of Investigation.
Okay. Now, we are waiting for the case to come up in court. And do we know what happens when the case comes up in court? What are the likely possibilities, Shravan? Because all of this is a matter of record, it's in a petition, and I don't know how the courts will react to this. A sitting Chief Minister, crossing the line.
Well, under various sections of the BNS, this is a crime. Section 49, that's abetment. Section 61, that's criminal conspiracy. Section 121, voluntarily causing hurt to deter public servant. And I can go on with various other sections. But the key point here, for the enforcement directorate, number one, it would be that they get back all that was taken yesterday. That is, the items that were first seized. Now, whether it is going to be useful for the investigation, that's not really known, because it'll be almost over 24 hours that all these items that were taken by the Chief Minister is with her. And more importantly, the question would be of destruction of evidence. So what would be the value of those items once returned? Not really known. But the enforcement directorate are certainly hopeful that some directions would be given by the court to the Chief Minister as well as the party, that they should not be interfering with the entire investigation. Importantly, if at all the court basically allows the Central Bureau of Investigation to intervene, or for that matter carry out an investigation or register an FIR, it's going to be more trouble for the Trinamool Congress, because if you simply go by What happened yesterday, and if you go by what legal experts have to say, they all say that this is a clear violation, and the enforcement directorate would certainly want the court to step in because their previous experience of filing a counter FIR hasn't really worked well.
Okay. I will just look at also some of the pictures of how the story is playing out in the national capital. You had some of these MPs who tried to protest and they were picked up by the police. If we can show the pictures of what happened in Delhi. What happened in Delhi? Can we show the pictures of what happened in Delhi this morning? There were protests in Delhi and many of these MPs were detained. Shawan, stay with me because I want to talk about what happened in Delhi as well. Several MPs were picked up and the fact of the matter is, and why the opposition will particularly be interested in this is because IPAC is also the consultancy that works for the DMK ahead of the Tamil Nadu elections, Shawan. And we have to talk about what really was found or what the charges are against them, because you can't discount, the larger picture here. It is a national story. It's no more just, about Bengal. It's a national story, will have national ramifications, Shawan, because they take care of several parties, including Jagan Mohan Reddy, if I'm not wrong. They take care of even the DMK's campaign, right, Shawan?
Well, it's not just limited to the state of West Bengal or for that matter the Trinamool Congress itself. There are other parties, for instance Aam Aadmi Party had also utilized their services. A part of it is actually used in Andhra Pradesh as well as Telangana. And with regards to the DMK, there are multiple consultancy firms that have been engaged by the party. But having said that, the question here is about ill-gotten wealth and the money that has been used for campaigning purposes. Because at the heart of this entire investigation is how the money or the proceeds of crime that was basically generated and it was effectively used. Now, for the Bharatiya Janata Party, it certainly becomes a sticking point here, given the fact that what you would have seen right now are those images of the Chief Minister entering a place that is being investigated, and that is being, perhaps amplified by the Bharatiya Janata Party, asking a basic question that what is it that the Chief Minister of West Bengal is hiding. And perhaps this is going to be taken forward because in Tamil Nadu too, remember, there are multiple investigations that are already underway in which sitting ministers have come under the scan of central agencies, and the fight between the opposition ruled states and the central government vis-a-vis the central agencies still continue, because the opposition leaders have largely countered this by simply saying that the centre has been using the enforcement directorate as well as the Central Bureau of Investigation as a political tool.
Shawan, thank you for joining us with those inputs. I'm moving across to the next story. The story is going to develop in the Calcutta High Court, where the courts will hear the ED petition in a short while from now. Going to be a very, very big story. But ladies and gentlemen, this morning we've had a comment that came in from the US Commerce Secretary Lutnick. And in this interview that he's given to the American media / social media, Lutnick, who's also Trump's closest aide, who advises him on everything trade related, admits that they proposed a deal to India. They gave a timeline to India. They gave a deadline to India, but India stuck to its ground. They expected a call from our Prime Minister. But India did not budge. And then the trade terms changed. Abhishek, my colleague, is joining us. Abhishek, this is contrary to what the opposition has been saying, surrender, Narendra, etc., etc. But that's not the point. Point is the US itself is admitting that Modi did not call. Lutnick is saying Modi did not call.
Yes, Niranjan. So I think a certain story is coming out of this clip from that podcast which the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has given. And the story is that India did not surrender. Forget about surrendering. India has not blinked to the kind of pressure tactics that have come to be associated with the US President Donald Trump and his team. So they were insisting on some kind of uh, 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 you know, deal in which India did not agree to certain red lines. We know from our sources earlier that a 15% tariff was agreed on the condition that US would not talk about dairy products, American dairy products coming into India, and some farm products, except for maybe some deal that was possible on American soya, for example. There are issues about genetically modified crops, which are so prevalent in the US, the GMOs, which cannot be, sort of planted into Indian markets and Indian agriculture. Except for those red lines, everything else was agreed to. But the trigger for a pushback and escalation happened post the Operation Sindoor, where we saw how President Trump wanted India to acknowledge his role in the ceasefire a bit with Pakistan, and then, of course, a recommendation for the Nobel Peace Prize. While Nobel Peace Prize is okay, but India could not, and Prime Minister Modi did not agree for a US role of any kind insofar as mediating for the ceasefire is concerned. And that's how things became escalatory and went down that path. Now, Howard Lutnick in this podcast is saying that, okay, fine, within that framework, also maybe US could have agreed had Prime Minister Modi, called President Trump, and then it would have been a fait accompli, because we don't know with Mercurial Trump what he says in the phone call and then what he posts on his social media handle. So I think in its wisdom, New Delhi decided that Prime Minister Modi would not make that phone call, which is again an evidence after Operation Sindoor, Niranjan,
Yes.
that this is the second time that we stood our ground. So during Operation Sindoor and during trade talks, both Prime Minister Modi personally and the New Delhi establishment generally have really, it's not about staring down the United States, but it's about making sure that India's interests are not compromised. If need be, we will be firm, even if we are polite. So I think that really comes out of this conversation. There are a lot of things that have happened parallelly, but Howard Lutnick, they're here giving away the reasons why the India-US trade deal is struck. There's a lot of geopolitics that has panned out, Niranjan. The fact that Quad was to happen, Quad Summit, Leaders Summit was to happen in India in 2025 did not happen because Trump did not go ahead with the trade deal, and Prime Minister Modi did not agree to those red lines. So I think important takeaways coming out of how India has very firmly handled a very mercurial Trump and his administration on the issue of Operation Sindoor, and of course for the trade deal also.
Just trying to get this right. They have spoken after that a couple of times. In fact, the Prime Minister has tweeted, but importantly, he speaks of a deadline. There was a deadline, and I think in the same interview, he speaks about how countries like Vietnam, Philippines, etc. stuck to that deadline. They called Trump. So it was more personal. Did he take it personally? Does it appear that Trump took it personally, that he didn't get that call because India stood its ground? And the deal changed.
Well, yes, you get that sense. You get that sense, Niranjan. The fact that with other countries, Trump could get his way, with the United Kingdom, with Philippines, with Indonesia, with Vietnam, with Australia. In the case of India, the Americans were a little peeved otherwise also because the red lines on dairy and genetically modified crops, and then the Operation Sindoor overlay. So I think taken together, the American takeaway, of course, is that it's not easy to deal with Modi and his government. And we had President Trump earlier also mentioning that Modi is a tough guy to deal with. And that was a giveaway on how difficult the negotiations have been. On the issue of whether a phone call would have made a difference, this is again a proof that Prime Minister Modi, in his wisdom, decided that if he makes that phone call and if Trump puts a certain condition and goes public with it, then it might jeopardize the larger bilateral relationship and might not just delay the trade deal as it has happened in the present, Niranjan, but might actually make things difficult for the trade deal to even happen. So I think the decision was to delay is better than completely giving up on a possible trade deal between India and the United States, or within the larger framework of a goalposts that continue to move with a mercurial president like Trump. So I think in that sense, a lot of positive takeaways insofar as India's negotiation tactics are concerned vis-a-vis the United States and particularly Trump and his team. And then, of course, the political point that comes out
in the context of the opposition attack on Prime Minister Modi personally with that Narendra surrender jibe, that he has not only not surrendered, but he has stood his ground, and he has stood his ground in a manner that the Americans are left with no answers and no thinking as to how to deal with this.
So India rejected the terms, and India had to deal with new terms of the US, which we refused to. I think that negotiation is still ongoing. But the big takeaway from this, ladies and gentlemen, Trump's own aide has said Modi did not call. He's indicating that India did not agree to the terms and India stood its ground. And that is the biggest takeaway for us, because there are a lot of social media memes, etc., that the opposition tried to say. They say that Modi buckled, India surrendered, etc. But the fact is, we have stuck our ground on the trade deal. And that's the biggest takeaway from the admission of Trump's own aide, who's also the US Commerce Secretary. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we take a short break on that note on the live report. This is a big update. Will be our focus story. It just busts the entire propaganda around the trade deal. The truth is, they wanted us to agree to their terms within a timeline, and we took our time. We did not want America holding a gun to our head. And that is our biggest takeaway. Taking a short break on the live report, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, focus on Calcutta and the hearing on the enforcement directorate petition. Stay tuned.